Hey everyone, Sam here, otherwise known as FPL Pricey. In today's video, I'm going to show you my team selection, meanwhile helping you get set up for Game Week 5 in FPL. In the meantime, if you could leave a like and subscribe to the channel, that would be greatly appreciated. For now though, let's crack on with it. Let's start off with a quick look at my Game Week 4 team performance, as that will colour our moves going into the Game Week 5 deadline. I made 2 free transfers going into Game Week 4. That was to get rid of Saka and Bruno for Salah and Eze. Now, that was with a 2-game week horizon or view, because I'm looking to wildcard at the end of Game Week 5 into Game Week 6. So, yes, it hasn't exactly paid off just yet. Both Saka and Bruno did get a return each. Meanwhile, Salah and Eze both blanked. But I'm hoping that it will turn around in Game Week 5 with the fixtures to come for both of these players, especially as Salah will be a prime captaincy candidate this game week. Overall, though, it was still enough for a green arrow, so I can't complain too much. It was a small green, 56 points, not massively above the average score, but still not terrible. As always, do let me know how you scored in the comments below, and show off in the comments if you had a really good game week, of course, as well. Looking around my side, though, there were only 3 players that got anything of note. Now, Raya has been absolutely exceptional for me so far. Got another clean sheet away at Spurs. Obviously got the added points as well, so did really well for me. And that's now 3 clean sheets in 4 games for Arsenal. So very, very good defensively. And even with Man City up next, I wouldn't put it past them to do well in that fixture either. Now, no returns in my back 3, unfortunately, but I'm still fairly happy with each of them individually, especially with this game week to come. And in my midfield 5, 4 out of 5 of them blanking, all 4 of those getting 2 pointers. Smith Rowe was the only one of note, only got the assist, but played really well, and obviously had enough about his performance to get the added bonus point as well, especially after that last minute clean sheet wipeout for Fulham, which, as a Robinson owner, did sting a little bit. It was made a little bit nicer when Smith Rowe got the bonus point added, though. So not too bad overall. And then, of course, the big man, as always, returning 2 goals for Erling Haaland. Some would say he's going out of form at the moment because he only got 2 rather than a hat-trick of hat-tricks. But jokes aside, he's been absolutely phenomenal. 9 goals in 4 games. Now, of course, we don't expect him to go along at this rate forever. 2 goals for every 1 game, just over that, in fact, so far this season. But he is on course for a very, very strong season in FPL, and no one would put it past him to continue this run of form just a little bit longer as well. Overall, 56 points, small green arrow, nothing to shout about, and we definitely won't be remembering Game Week 4 for a long time. But a green's a green, and I'm settled around the top 1 million at the moment. Hopefully I can push beyond that in Game Week 5. As always, let's take a look at some of the key issues facing our teams ahead of the Game Week 5 deadline. Number 1 is a player in my side, and that is Alexander Isak. Now, as it stands, we haven't had Eddie Howe's press conference, and I am recording this on Wednesday during the day. So hopefully Howe comes out and gives us some sort of information around Isak. Although I wouldn't bet on it, because Howe is usually very sneaky in the press conferences. He's even been known to outright lie as well, to steal a march on his opponents ahead of the deadline. So whatever he says, I probably wouldn't take it as gospel, and Isak is going to be a risk. However, since my last video, I had the information that he'd gone off at half time. I didn't know exactly what that information meant or what was actually wrong with him. So it looked like a bloody nose. I think there's a little bit more to it than that. And what it's ended up being is blurred vision as well. And that's why he couldn't continue in the second half of the Game Week 4 fixture. However, I think that was all related to one incident, and hopefully if we see him in training whatsoever, we can be fairly confident that he starts in Game Week 5. As it stands though, we still haven't got that information, so we might need to plan for maybe possibly transfers out for him and which players might be the best alternatives to him if you wanted to make that swap, if you didn't have a strong bench, for instance. Now, moving down, this is a very striker-heavy focus for the issues this game week, because unfortunately we've been plagued with a number of injuries and also rotation as well in the forward line. Now, Johan Wissa also came off early in game week 4. Unfortunately, we do have more information on him. It's not looking like good news. It looks like he's going to be in a boot for a few game weeks and then probably be nursed back to full fitness after that as well. Now, the timeline looks likely to be around 2 months. So I think, unfortunately, although he looked like a good option, he's a definite transfer out. So we'll tackle a couple of good ideas for who you can bring in for him in the next section. Now, another player that you'll probably be looking at transferring out is Rodrigo Muniz. He didn't start in game week 4. Obviously, his replacement, Raul Jimenez, did start and scored, so you'd expect him to keep his place. And what's made me even more convinced of that is the fact that Muniz did start in the Carabao Cup in midweek. So it looked like a bit of a rotated 11, and you'd imagine that Jimenez comes back in his place for game week 5. That will come and go as the season goes on, but for the time being, I think Muniz has unfortunately lost his place and is therefore a transfer out. Moving down, João Pedro is a player that I wouldn't be moving on just yet, although it is an issue to monitor ahead of the deadline, and we will be looking at press conference notes from Hurtzler before we go into game week 5. If he's fit, he's still a great pick, so you don't want to get rid of him just yet. It's more of the fact that you want to basically keep one eye on those press conferences. If he is a problem, then some of the players that I'm going to bring up in the next section could be appealing alternatives, not just to Isak, but also to Wissa, Muniz, and Pedro. So this next section is, again, very focused on forward options because all of the issues so far seem to be forward-based issues in our sides. Now, I've put together a number of Isak replacements, but some of the cheaper options on this spreadsheet are going to be appropriate for those other issues, the Wissers, the Pedros if he's not fit, and of course the Muniz issues as well. Top 2, though, are definitely not replacements for those 2 players because they're a little too expensive, and Ollie Watkins would actually cost a little bit more than even Isak if he were to be out this game week. So you do need money in the bank to make that move, but I still think he is the number 1 key replacement or option on offer if you've got the money to do so and you did want to get rid of Isak. He's been not in the best form so far this season, but he had the benefit of the international break to get himself back up to full fitness, played more minutes in game week 4 than we have seen so far this season, and of course started finding the back of the net as well. So I think it's pretty likely that we're about to see the best out of Ollie Watkins. Has a good fixture in game week 5 and is arguably even an outside differential captaincy option. I really like him, not just for this game week, but also for the upcoming run that Villa have. And the data, as I'll go into in just a moment's time in the captaincy matrix, is very, very strong for Watkins. So he would be my number 1 replacement, but not everyone's got that 0.5, 0.4 in the bank to make that move. I think it's 0.5 at the moment. I think both have had a price drop. So if you don't have that money, who else can we be looking at? Now, number 2 on this spreadsheet is not far behind Watkins in my estimations this game week. Solanke has been unfortunate not to get returns so far. Obviously had a bit of an injury problem between game weeks 2 and 3. Came back for game week 4, but that was against Arsenal. He's always going to find that a relatively tough fixture to get an attack and return in. And I think in game week 1, he was very unlucky not to get anything. So I still really like Solanke. He's cheaper than Isak, so you can downgrade him without having to use 2 free transfers and find money elsewhere. And I'm convinced that he will be a good option this game week at home to Brentford, who have been conceding a lot of chances through the centre so far. So I like Solanke. We don't think he's on penalties, but I suppose it is possible. But overall, in that Spurs side that create a lot of chances for that centre forward, as we saw with Son when he's played there and with Richarlison when he's played there last season, I still really like Solanke as a replacement alternative. Down the list, 3 and 4 are both good options for this game week and good options if you're looking at a cheap budget enabler forward for one of those cheaper issues that we discussed in the last section. Now, over the 2, I think I would probably marginally rank Calvert-Lewin ahead of Vardy, but only if you're looking long term. Now, they play each other this game week, and Leicester have the home tie, the home fixture. It's not a cup run, obviously. Now, Vardy at home against Everton is looking like a great fixture. Everton have been very poor defensively so far this season. but that's more of a game week or a one game week punt rather than a long term thing. And I think whilst Leicester's fixtures over the long term are also very good, they are a lesser side to Everton overall, and I think the long run will show us that. But also, Vardy is now, I think, turning 38 very, very soon. He is going to get his minutes managed, and I don't think he'll be able to play 90 week in, week out. And therefore, whilst he's a very good 1 or 2 game week punt, over the long term, I do prefer Calvert-Lewin, who, despite having his injury issues in the past, has looked a lot better recently, and I think I can more rely on him over the long term than Jamie Vardy at the moment. And Everton's fixtures, not just for the next couple, but over a pretty decent run, are looking really strong as well. So I do like Calvert-Lewin. He should be getting good minutes, and the fixtures are great. Moving down to number 5, Nico Jackson is a differential option, but Chelsea also have a decent fixture run at the moment, and Jackson's data is very good. The problem with Jackson, and the reason that maybe he's not higher up at the moment, is Chelsea just have so many alternatives, not just in the midfield and in the wing areas, but also they can play a number of those players as a false 9 or even in the centre forward role. Now, Nkunku could put his hand up. Obviously, he got the nod, came off the bench and got the goal against Bournemouth. And because that was such an important goal, maybe he gets favoured to start in game week 5. So there are alternatives there now. It is an issue, I think, with minutes for Jackson. And unless we see him consistently starting games from here on out, I don't think that I can put him ahead of the likes of a Watkins, Solanke, or even Calvert-Lewin or Vardy. You could even make an argument for Mateta, even though it's against Man United, being ahead of him in this ranking at the moment, just based on the fact that you know he's going to start, and now it looks like he's going to be on penalties as well. Let me know, as always, who your favourite Isak replacement will be this game week, if you are indeed looking to replace him, and I will discuss whether or not I am in the sections to follow. So on to the captaincy debate ahead of game week 5. So let's have a look at the matrix, and rarely are we going to see a matrix which doesn't favour Haaland this season. However, there could be a very strong argument to go against him this game week. As you can see, Arsenal at home is red on the ticker, but it is also one of the most difficult fixtures of the season for Man City. It will be probably a pretty cagey game. Arsenal's defence is very, very strong. And obviously 3 clean sheets in 4 already this season as well means they're on top form when it comes to keeping sides out. But if anyone are going to break them down, it would be Man City at home at the Etihad. And Erling Haaland hasn't just been on good form, he's been in absolutely sensational form this season. So with that in mind, even against Arsenal, I would have no qualms whatsoever with anyone that thought, you know what, I back the player over the fixture and I'm just going to perma-captain him against anyone, because 9 goals in 4 games doesn't come around often. This guy is in the form of his life at the moment, and the data backs it up too. 1.25 XGI per 90 is absolutely sensational at the moment as well. So he is expected 7.3 points, which is still very, very good. And it goes to show just how much of a quality player he is against the worst team you could possibly face in terms of defensive capability. He's still expected over 1 attacking return on average this game week. However, he's not top. Salah is top this game week, and his data has also been very strong. 0.77 XGI per 90 is still very good. Had a blip in game week 4, but before then was matching Haaland pace for pace with 41 points after the first 3 game weeks. So let's not forget just how good an option Salah has been this season. 6 attacking returns and 8.2 expected points this game week as well. Very, very strong at home to Bournemouth. Now, Bournemouth can be somewhat of a chaotic side, but I don't think anyone could argue that they're a bad side. They're still a decent Premier League side. They're not going to be easy for Liverpool to break down, and I don't want people to get carried away with how easy this fixture is. Bournemouth are not going to be amongst the sides that we're looking to target this season. They are not the worst defensive side in the league. They're not the best either, so it is definitely a better fixture than Arsenal at home for Man City, but it's not crazy good. I think the reason that Salah is this far out ahead is because he himself is a fantastic option, and Liverpool have also been very good on the underlying expected data as well. So I think it is fair to say that Salah is still my favoured option for Game Week 5. But let's not discount Haaland. He's still a good option and he could still punish you if you go against him this game week. So there is risk attached to that choice. Beyond that, the two that I like, and they're not necessarily the two at the top of the expected points from Fantasy Football Hub, but Son at home to Brentford and Watkins at home to Wolves are two good options I like this game week as differential captaincy candidates. And with those fixtures, I've already mentioned Brentford are conceding a lot of shots. Son could capitalise on that in the wide areas. And, of course, Son himself should be on penalties and has got 2 goals already this season as well. So I don't hate him as an option. I wouldn't put him ahead of the likes of Salah or Haaland, though. One player that I do really like is Ollie Watkins. 0.97 XGI per 90 is very, very strong. In fact, it's better than Salah so far this season. And I do expect Aston Villa to be able to get a good amount of chances against them. I really don't hate Watkins as a differential option this game week. I probably wouldn't put him ahead of Salah or Haaland. But if you're looking at mixing it up, or for whatever reason you don't have Salah or Haaland, I would probably put Watkins as the strong third favourite candidate at the moment. There are a couple of others out there. Obviously, you can look at Palmer away at West Ham. That's not a bad fixture whatsoever. And Saka, even though it's against Man City, is never going to be a terrible pick. I just probably wouldn't put him ahead of any of the alternatives on this matrix at this time. In the comments below, do let me know who your favoured captaincy candidate is for Game Week 5. Are you looking at Salah because of the fixture, or Haaland because it's Erling Haaland? So let's move on to my team selection ahead of Game Week 5. Now, I've got 0.2 in the bank and 1 free transfer to use, so I could look at taking a 1 game week punt if I wanted to, especially because I'm wildcarding next game week, or at least that's the plan as it stands. However, I don't think that 1 free transfer is best used in goal, even though I could, because it's Man City away. You don't expect a clean sheet for any team. Raya has been so good and Arsenal have been so good defensively that I think if anyone's going to keep a clean sheet against Man City, it would be Raya and it would be Arsenal. So I'm not willing to spend a free transfer, especially because I can roll those transfers over the wildcard now. I'm not willing to take a 1 game week punt on a keeper just because they've got a tough fixture this game week. I would also kick myself if Arsenal were able to keep a clean sheet, because that would probably be another pretty big haul for Raya if he's able to do so. Now, moving into my defence, 3 home fixtures for them. Bournemouth at home for Trent. I'm really hoping he finally comes in with a big haul. Obviously, he's done well for me so far, but I'm still awaiting that attacking return to match with a clean sheet, and that would give me a mega haul for Trent. Obviously, he'd pick up bonus points if that's the case, most likely as well. Hasn't quite gotten there so far, but I'm hoping this is the week. Now, Brentford at home for Porro is also a good fixture. I back his attacking threat in that game, and obviously a home game for a player like Porro, I'm never going to look at selling or benching. And Robinson at home to Newcastle, whilst not the easiest of fixtures, I still back the home fixture there, and I still think Robinson has been good enough to hold on to and start this game week ahead of Hall, who has won his place back but plays the away fixture, the away version of that fixture against Fulham away from home. I back the home team a little bit more in that fixture, and also mixed in with the fact that Hall has been a bit of a rotation risk and obviously could come back out of the side in Game Week 5 or at any moment's notice. So I'm happy enough keeping that defensive 3. Moving into the midfield, 5 home fixtures across the board as well. Salah gets the armband, as I discussed in the captaincy matrix. And then beyond that, whilst I'm not overjoyed with that other 4, I'm still pretty happy with them for 1 more game week. Man United at home will give up chances for Eze. He has lost the penalties, it seems, or at least some of the penalties. But his underlying data and the positions he's taking up on the pitch are still not worth selling this game week. I still back him to come good eventually, and I still think he's a decent pick for 6.9 million. Rodgers has been very, very frustrating, but there's really no other options at that price point that I can take a 1 game week punt on right now. And also, Rodgers himself has come pretty close to returning so far, so I'm hoping against Wolves we can finally get the return that owners will be sorely hopeful of at this point in time. Smith Rowe's been great, not looking at moving him on, obviously, but probably won't make it for me on a wild card next week. So a bit of a goodbye tour for him against Newcastle at home. Same goes for Minte. Hasn't been great for me, but also not worth selling with a home fixture to come. I'm a little bit worried about rotation. Adingra could come in, but I back him for one more game week. I'll take the risk. And if he doesn't start, he will probably come off the bench for 20 minutes at the end anyway. So whilst I'm not overjoyed with it, I don't think it's worth a transfer right now either. Now, moving into my front line, this is probably the most likely place I could use a transfer. Not on Erling Haaland. I've put the vice captaincy on him. And at home to Arsenal, we've already discussed it. The expected points are still really high. So I'm not looking at getting rid of him this game week in the form that he's in at the moment. But Isak is a risk. And if we hear any sort of news that he could be a major doubt for game week 5, then I've got a decision to make. Away at Fulham, so I don't mind that fixture whatsoever. And if he's fit, I will definitely just roll the free transfer and start with him in game week 5. And even if it's doubtful whether or not he does start, I might still be pretty tempted to hold on to him anyway, especially because now Hall has got his place back. I've got a player coming off the bench for him if I wanted it. And Armstrong could start against Ipswich at home. It's obviously not likely. He did look like he lost his place in game week 4. But with that home fixture, if he comes on for 20 minutes at the end, that might not be terrible. Either way, I could look at making a free transfer here, but I can't afford Watkins. I could go for someone like Solanke. But as it stands, I think it's pretty unlikely that we get any sort of locked-in team news from Eddie Howe that we can trust. And therefore, I think I'm best placed just rolling the free transfer through the wildcard and giving myself 2 free transfers ahead of game week 7. And also backing the fact that Isak, if he is fit, is a good option for this game week. And if he's not, bringing on the likes of Armstrong or Hall, whilst not ideal, it's not the end of the world. And I don't think it's quite worth a free transfer for me to sell Isak, considering I at least have minutes coming off the bench in my team. Now, as always, as we reach the end of today's video, if you could leave a like and subscribe to the channel, that'd be really, really appreciated. And if you've got any of your own questions ahead of the deadline, please do feel free to leave them in the comments below.